Hello everyone and welcome to another entry in our Community Cast series. In this match, we're going to have a showdown between Professor Pone, who's going to be playing the High Elves led by Prince on a Star Dragon, and he's going to be facing off against Statist NR25, who's going to be playing the Vampire Counts led by Vlad von Karstein. So let's jump right into this match, guys, and have some fun. So for Professor Pone, it looks like he does have a combination of High Elf Spearmen, which, and I think they all have Silver Chevrons? Let's go ahead and check. And it looks like they do have Silver Chevrons, so their melee defense is going to be 56. So I definitely like the inclusion of these guys in the mainline formation, and also kind of the detail of having them out on the flank. So having one here and one on the far side, if some Blood Knights or Hounds or other threats are trying to get into the back, even though Lothar and Seaguard are somewhat independent, it's still good to have some supporting units. So he could easily detach these Spearmen to protect against cav threats, and all kinds of spooky, scary skeletons. So Spearmen in the front line, he does also have a couple of groups of the Swordmasters of Hoth, which I do like in this matchup. They're pretty good against Graveguard. I mean, all graveyard variants. Graveguard variants, these guys are going to do a very good job against. They have a 36 weapon strength, which, I mean, isn't the best in terms of just raw weapon strength. If you look at the Graveguard with great weapons, they actually have 40. But they do have a massive bonus versus infantry of 14, and on top of that, they have outstanding stats. So a lot of great weapon units like Chaos Warriors, I think, are in like the mid 30s, and I think Great Swords are like 30 or 32. So I mean, these guys are definitely on the higher end of the spectrum. I think Chosen might be somewhat similar in this category, and these guys might even be a bit higher than Chosen. I think regular Chosen with great weapons are like 44. So definitely their strong suit is having these very high combat stats. So they're going to be good at cutting through chaff, through Graveguard. But in this matchup, I found that the Swordmasters of Hoth do struggle a little bit against Mortis Engines and Black Coaches. And that feels so weird saying like Black Coaches are actually a threat. But the Black Coach can do pretty well, and of course if these guys are pinned down by chaff units and skeletons and there's a Mortis Engine draining them, or more importantly, if you're going to be facing off against Manfred, who is one of the more competitive picks, I think you have to be careful with bringing a bunch of these guys, because Fated Buna can really neuter them pretty darn hard. But still, they're going to be good from what I can see in his opponent's composition here. It looks like Statist over here does have some Graveguard with great opens. He has a big Vladdy Daddy. So these guys are definitely in the right ballpark here. So Spearmen in the front, in the back, Professor Pone does have a couple of groups of Lothar and Seaguard, which are also quite good. If there's a Black Knights, Varix Reavers, Blood Knights pressuring your back line, you can honestly just leave these guys to their own devices. Now, they're not going to like massacre those units, but they're also not going to take a lot of damage, and they will give it back a little bit. So I really like getting Lothar and Seaguard when I want to have a front heavy build where I don't really have to defend these guys. But something else, if you guys are facing off against High Elves and you're wondering how to effectively take out Lothar and Seaguard, you can muck them up with zombie summons, which is very good, or you can actually use Hounds, because Hounds are considered small entities, so they're not going to get their bonus versus large, which is going to make them relatively weak. So Lothar and Seaguard, 3 groups there. He does have a high magic with Tempest and Apotheosis. Star Dragon up here, and I definitely like the Tempest. Like if there had been a double Terrorgeist build, it would have been able to provide some support to the Prince, where he could have breathed fire on the stun targets. So definitely some good stuff there. Over here, Prof. Pone does have some Dragon Princes, who I wonder if they beat Blood Knights one-on-one. I feel like they would. I mean, 44, 42, 44 compared to 40, 40, 39, but they do have bonus versus large. Better charge bonus, heavier armor, I think, or 110 on each, actually, but they do have that physical resist, which is really big, so seems like a pretty even matchup. So that's pretty much it for the High Elves. For the Vampire Counts, Blood Knights. On top of that, he's got some Fellbats, he's got some more Direwolves over there on the far side. So definitely an overwhelming force here for the Vamps. They might be able to just catch these Dragon Princes and take them out. For his main core, Skeleton Warriors, Chaff in the front line, Graveguard, who performed very well against Spearmen, actually better than the Great Open variant, from my experience. So he's got Graveguard in the front. He has the Tithe, which is the Regiment of Renown of Zombies, definitely very solid, has good physical resist, and just a good chaff unit. And it's always nice to have at least one unit like this that you send forward against High Elves, just to see if you can waste any of their ammunition before they turn off the fire at will. One more group of additional Blood Knights, a full back line of Graveguard with great opens, which I think is also a very solid choice, and Vlad von Karstein, who's not bad at all. I think Manfred is a better pick, but Vlad definitely, is nothing to sneeze at. He can definitely survive the Dragon's beatings. So without further ado, guys, let's get the show on the road. So in the front, you can see the Tithe is going to be waddling first, and the Spearmen are obviously going to intercept the Tithe, which is pretty optimal. You don't want to be wasting your elite troops on these guys. You can also see some of these arrows are shooting into the Graveguard. You do have the Silver Shield, so it's not going to be terribly devastating, but here they come, and there's going to be the Collide. So the Loremasters, or Swordmasters of Hoth, will definitely win this. It's going to be a pretty big monster mash. You can see on the initial charge, those Graveguard took a world beating. I mean, these Swordmasters, I wonder how they do against Chosen 1v1. I know I've done that test before, but I just can't remember. But yeah, they're going to be really, really strong here. The Vampire Counts don't have too many supporting elements. It looks like they're going to, and this is a classic mistake, whenever you have like stacking infantry like this, it's relatively combat ineffective. I mean, this one group of Swordmasters is literally going to meat grind potentially like 2 or 3 of these groups here. So, I mean, not all 3, but it's going to, like, getting that one group and having one go after Spearman or having one go up and around would have been a little bit more optimal. In the meantime, the fight over here, Professor Pone has been caught out by Statist. You can see he's able to get on these Dragon Princes. The Blood Knight's taken a little bit of damage. Professor Pone did use an Apotheosis, but, you know, these Dragon Princes are just going to be overwhelmed by the Blood Knights. And he also did a pretty good job getting the Fellbats on the back of them, which is really nice because it pins them. You can see they're trapped. They're losing additional models to the Blood Knights. I'm pretty sure they're just going to be offline here. So yeah, you can see those Dragon Princes are just going to be running for the hills, and they're actually shattered. So now there's going to be a big Zerg coming. So the High Elves are definitely doing pretty darn good in the frontline engagement. You can see this Star Dragon right here is working on Vlad a little bit. Vlad is a long-term project. You're not going to be able to just trash can him very quickly. It's gonna take you some time. You can see Vlad took a couple hits from Dragon, but he's totally fine. Does he have the Karstein Ring? He does, so he can get that 90% ward save. And it looks like he's summoning some zombies somewhere. So he summons them on top of the Spearman, which isn't a bad choice. And the Swordmaster of Hoet, 118 kills, and those are all against Graveguard. So that was definitely a big mistake, stacking all that value just in one spot. That really allows this thing to just become like a meat grinder. On the far side, some Fellbats are being used to shut down the Lothran Seaguard, and also there was a zombie summon from Vlad to shut down the other group, so some very good play from the Vampire Counts player there as well. And the Blood Knights are coming in, but as long as Pone doesn't have these guys on skirmish mode, they're going to stand and they're going to brace for this charge, and they'll be totally fine. In the meantime, the High Elves are doing a pretty good job with the Prince. He's just kind of maintaining this frontline engagement, supporting his weaker troops and these Spearmen, and just working on, Vladdy Daddy. It looks like there's going to be another summon, perhaps. Is that, yeah, looks like a zombie summon, trying to trap down this Prince. And you can also see that Professor Pone is running around in the back with the high magic. And I think, yeah, he just has Apotheosis and Tempest. But man, these Swordmaster of Hoeth are just cutting these guys to pieces. 169 kills. I mean, it looks like he's almost taken out like two groups of those guys. This group is like very beat up at 52 models, and yeah, I think the other group just got completely eradicated. So if we go across the front line, you can see these Swordmasters, 141 kills as well. They just carved through this flank over here. Just look at all those Graveguard. That also opens up these Spearmen, who are doing a pretty good job pushing through. And, there's no Mortis Engine style play. It's a very Blood Knight heavy build, which seemed to probably be a better answer maybe against like a Dragon Prince style build, but unfortunately it was very infantry heavy. But Dragon Princes can still get some pretty decent cycle charging against like Swordmaster. So in the back, these Lothran Seaguard are being punished by these Blood Knights, and they are a little bit durable, but the Blood Knights are just a very strong unit. They probably got their full charge bonus of 78, and although actually the charge defense against large foes does negate that, I'm not sure how that works mechanically. I know it does I think it actually just negates the bonus, but they're still able to cut through them. You can see the Blood Knights just pushing through these Lothran Seaguard, who are going to have to run for the hills. So it's looking pretty grim in the back line for the High Elves here. You can see these Lothran Seaguard are putting up a much better fight against these Blood Knights, and they have that anti-large bonus. 44 melee defense is definitely going to help ward off a lot of these attacks. But if he comes in with these Blood Knights and is able to get them up and around and, rear charges this group or, collapses on this group right here of Lothran Seaguard, we're actually getting munched by these bats because Fellbats, small entity units, the bonus first large is not going to help in that situation. And here come the Blood Knights. So the Blood Knights in the back are just going to slam into them. And I'm pretty sure they weren't braced for that. They were like facing the other direction. So I think they're just going to take a massive beating here. And the charge bonus, unfortunately, is going to be pertinent here. In the meantime, though, Professor Pone acknowledging there's a pretty serious threat in his back line is going to be bringing back the Prince. Maybe we'll be seeing a Star Dragon Breath. He might just decide to land here. And here comes a Breath attack right down on those guys. It looks like it just might have killed a couple of his own guys, but also did get one or two Blood Knight models, but definitely a little bit tricky with moving targets there. And in the meantime, the High Elves, or the Vampire Counts and the Blood Knights are just cycle charging in the back. But the name of the game in the front is High Elves. The High Elves have just completely meat grinded down all of these Graveguard. The Swordmaster of Hoeth, 241 kills here, and this other group here has 197, and you can see the Star Dragon is also going to be jumping in there, and it's going to make short work of Vlad. I mean, Vlad is strong and durable. He's a very sustainable lord with good utility, but a Star Dragon, in terms of just a pure duelist, is just forced to be reckoned with. You can see with Deadly Onslaught, 696 weapon strength, flame attacks, 64 melee attacking per second there. He actually had like 80 plus melee defense with stand your ground, but the Blood Knights can come in and get some good cycle charging. And the bounce power is pretty much dead even, so if Vlad can summon a bunch of zombies and just tie these troops up, and maybe with really aggressive cycle charging, and it looks like there was a Tempest going down, which I think might have been an accident, or maybe he was trying to get these Fellbats. I think it was an accident, probably trying to get Apotheosis off. But the Blood Knights are going to come in, and they're just going to be getting some aggressive cycle charging, but there are a ton of spears in here. And the Swordmaster of Hoeth, even though they're meant against infantry, they have really, really good melee attack. So that melee attack should be able to get through the melee defense of the Blood Knights and also bring some very good armor piercing to the table. And as long as the Star Dragon, the Prince on the Star Dragon doesn't get surrounded, he should be in good shape. But man, this game could certainly go either way. These Blood Knights are rocking 40 models right here, the other group at 31. And if Vlad could also get a really good invocation of Mehek on both of these groups, that would be incredibly powerful. So you can see the Prince is flying over here. Maybe he's posturing for another breath attack, perhaps. Blood Knights are lining up. It's like the row here. I'm lining up here at the Pelennor Fields, but it looks like they're going to be backing up right here, just kind of trying to get their bearings. And Vlad is just tanking these guys. There's also this high magic mage over here who could potentially come in here. I probably would have him come and kind of start slapping Vlad a little bit. But the Swordmasters of Hoth, are starting to cut through him. I mean, he is durable, 50 melee defense, but, like I said, these guys are rocking 51 melee attack. They have gotten 2 chevrons from meat grinding those guys. So right now they're encircling the wagon. You can see the Blood Knights are trying to get up and around the Spearmen, find an opportunity to charge onto those guys, and it's pretty awesome. Bone's just sitting here, knowing that these guys need to get a good charge. They don't want to charge into spears, and it's just like a ticking time bomb because Vlad is fighting these elite infantry, throwing his vampire karate kicks, vampire jitsu, and just having a good time in here. But there's a expiration date on this. The longer he sits and fights without the support of these Blood Knights, he's not going to last much longer. And you can see Pone is just kind of screening him, just like kind of like an NFL. When you have like the safety or linebackers mirroring the running back. He's got these spearmen just posturing and just following these Blood Knights around, and the dragon's just sitting up in the air in Overwatch, which is pretty great. You can also see an Apotheosis going down and healing some of these Swordmasters, and it looks like the High Magic Mage is coming in. So right now the Vampire Count's obviously knowing this is the final chance to get in. He charges in with the Blood Knights, but the High Elf Spearmen just resolute, just holding there. They got their shields up, their spears out for Harambe, and they should be able to hold these guys back. The other Blood Knights get a really good charge and are able to get around the spears a little bit. It looks like some models got caught up, but trying to rescue Vlad. And you can see the Karstein ring going off, but he's at his cap of healing. So he has 1,000 HP, and the dragon coming in and just roasting so many guys. Oh my gosh. So the dragon at this point probably is just going to fly in there and finish off Vlad, knowing things are pretty safe. That breath attack was so haggard. It's just like roasted those Swordmasters so hard, but I don't think the vampires can come back. You can see there's some cycle charging from the Blood Knights. They get in there and are able to get some of those spearmen down. But from here, it's probably going to be an army losses situation. And yeah, you can see the Blood Knights charging in, and the High Elf Spears are able to hold them at bay. So the name of the game in this match, the tail of the tape, are the High Elf Infantry. You can see like the dogs and the Blood Knights with the bat support were able to do a very good job against Lothar and Seaguard with zombie summons, but 230, 274 in the Swordmasters of Hoth, it was really cool seeing them work. A lot of times you just see like builds that are very heavily focused around Dragon Princes and just kind of that style of play, but it's always nice to see like a build that has a couple High Elf elite infantry units actually like pay for themselves. I mean, look how badly they massacred these Graveguard with great weapons. That was just a world beating. So yeah, it was definitely cool stuff. So for the vampires, I think just a few minor changes. You could honestly cut these Graveguard here, just like you don't really need these. I mean, against Spearmen, they'll do okay, but cut them, just get a lot more skeletons. Like you get like 4 or 5 more groups of skeletons. And you know what, actually, we'll go to the breakdown here and we'll take a look at the, a couple little vampire count variation here. So if we go here, we're looking at Skaven there, so we want to be looking here. I would probably recommend just getting like Vladdy Daddy, or Manfred, excuse me. So you can get Manfred. On a dragon's risky because you can be facing off against the Tempest and just other shenanigans. So you can get these 2 abilities in terms of Lore of Death. And over here, you probably want to get the Invocation of Nehek and Raise Dead. And it's very important to get the Sword of Unholy Power. So you put him on a horse, and if you're on top of your micro, you can usually get away from dragons and things like that. You don't really have to worry. So that would probably be my one choice there. You can even mix in a Banshee. The High Elves have some magic damage, but a lot of times they're not going to have like single target magic damage. So mixing in a single Banshee for terror and AP in the front line can be pretty good. And yeah, that's decent for now. So let's get some Graveguard with great weapons. You can get the Sternsman. I think that's a pretty decent little frontline core. You can even do something like this. And then you can get some skeletons. You can get some zombies if you want to, but skeletons or zombies are kind of interchangeable. So we'll just get some zombies for laughs and gaffs. So here you have choices. I think one group of Blood Knights in the Dire Pack is decent for just like countering Star Dragon play. And then on top of that, you can just get a Mortis Engine here. I mean, honestly, you can cut this. You can get a Black Coach. Like something like this is probably fine. Because, the Blood Knights plus Dire Pack plus the support of Manfred with the, not Invocation of Nehek, but the Fate of Buna is pretty much going to counter most of the Dragon Prince builds. This is a little bit scary, though. You need to be careful with the Claw of Nagash because it can get taken out by missile fire. So, I mean, you could even cut, like, this Graveguard because, like, the Mortis Engine is going to win that front line by itself. With zombie summons and a Banshee and just all these troops, you're going to win that front line. And then with that money, you could just get 2 more Direwolves, which can just counter the backline archers and things like that, and you should be fine. So something like this would probably be what I would recommend against High Elves, but there's a bunch of variations and different things you can try. So again, big thanks to Professor Pone for sending over the replay. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this community cast, and guys, we will see you all next time. Take care.